Welcome to Behind the Warrior, a podcast presented by the EOD Warrior Foundation. This series will focus on resources, interviews, and topics impacting EOD warriors, their families, and the military community at large.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Behind the Warrior podcast. I'm your host, Maria Shabla, and today we are very excited to be speaking with Luke Ryker, who is a former Air Force EOD tech and now CEO and founder of Track Heroes. Welcome to the podcast, Luke.
Thank you, Maria. I really appreciate this opportunity. This is really cool. Always been a supporter of the EOD Foundation, the EOD Warrior Foundation, and the Memorial. So this is just really cool to be able to be accepted by the community and getting a chance to join you today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you. So I always like to start from the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where did you grow up, and what was your childhood like?
Yeah, so I grew up in Southington, Connecticut, right just west of Hartford. Basically grew up there, wife, mom and dad, all that good stuff. Graduated high school in '97 and immediately anyway.
That's the same year
Anyway.
I graduated.
Yeah. So I graduated in
97.
'97.
Uh-huh.
And right after I graduated high school, I immediately joined the Air Force and immediately into EOD.
Wow.
So big jump. Yep. Right from high school, right to EOD.
Wow. So why EOD?
It's actually a funny story. So a guy down the street, you know how it typically is. There's a mentor. We played chess together growing up, and I always went to him for advice. And he was Air Force. He was on the security forces, law enforcement side, and he was like a law enforcement guy. A guy in the community doing a lot of public service, that community service kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so through the years, I'd always relied on him for advice and guidance. And when it came time to finally decide the career path I wanted to go, what job I wanted, I went up to him and I was like, "Hey, Ed, man. You were in the Air Force. I don't want to know what the best job is. I want to know what the coolest job is. What is the coolest job that you, looking back on it, with all your experience in the military, like, man, that was a cool job. I wish I could have done that." And he had two things for me. The first one he said was CADM. He's like, "CADM is cool, man. We went there one time. They had thousands of rounds of ammunition. All they do is shoot guns all day." He's like, "If I could do this again, that's what I would do." I'm like, "Okay, CADM. I think I can remember that." He's like, "Then there's another one. There's one other one." He's like, "EOD. I'm not quite sure what they do exactly, but one time I was doing security on a helicopter and two dudes walked up with cut off jeans and a cooler of beer and it looked like a case of C4. They got on the helicopter and flew away. I have no idea what they did, but that just looked really cool." I'm like, "Okay, helicopter people with beer and explosives, that seems pretty cool." So when I got to MEPS and I got my score, they're sitting down, they're like, "Okay, what job do you want to do?" I'm like, Camel. They shoot guns a lot. And the guy's like, "I have no idea what you're talking about, man." I'm like, begins with a C or something. We ended up looking for like 5 minutes. I'm like, I got frustrated. I'm like, "I don't know. How about EOD?" He's like, "Oh yeah, here's EOD. It even has a signing bonus." I'm like, "I'm in."
Wow.
So it ended up being
fun.
advice, but the story was it is really cool how it ended up happening. It was and honestly, looking back on it, looking at all the different career paths that you could have taken in the Air Force, there's really no other job I could have done and had as much joy, I guess, as working as EOD. It was totally fulfilling. It came to the challenge. I also thoroughly enjoyed the fact that the publications and the technical orders. I mean, it's a lot of guidance. It's they trust you as long as you're safe downrange in the bomb that you can make judgment calls and. As long as you can justify the safety of your actions and stuff, it's usually good to go. And, that kind of flexibility of thought that's allowed in EOD, I think it might actually be unique to EOD when it comes to the military. Not really a lot of flexible thinking allowed. So, I mean, it was a perfect, just perfect situation, perfect happenstance. And that's what got me into the EOD field. And I
Perfect fit.
thoroughly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks to Ed.
Yeah, thanks, Ed.
Does he
and he
know
actually has
that...
a role to play on Track Heroes too. So I mean, he'll come back into the story. So
that's
good
so
stuff.
awesome. I love that.
Yeah, very cool.
Okay, so before we dive into Track Heroes, can you give us some highlights of your career?
Okay, yeah. So like I said, I joined in '97. Went to EOD school right out of basic training. Did half of it in Eglin and the other half in Indian Head. So I got to actually see both locations before they did the full transition down to Eglin. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
It was a tough sledding straight out of basic training. Like everyone knows, it's like the only joint school out there that's, nav school EOD. I always say it's a Navy school on an Air Force base with the Army and Marine Corps instructors. Like it is just a total, it's a purple fun. Purple before purple was cool. So, going directly from basic training into that environment, where you have a lot of cross trainees, a lot of Marine Corps guys that are, very serious and professional, and guys like that, and you're a fresh-faced Air Force guy. You definitely got the brunt of a lot of the jokes and a lot of the let's say attention. But it's usually warranted. Air Force guys typically have a swagger about them when it comes to the other services that they could sometimes find obnoxious. And so we usually bring it on ourselves anyway. But thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I said, got out, graduated that from in '98. Went over to the First Fighter Wing at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, in the Hampton Roads area. Was there from '98 to 2003. So obviously during that time frame, 9/11 happened. So 9/11 happened, 2001, obviously, and before September was over, our unit, our shop had deployed. We were already in Qatar before September was over. So within 20 days, we were already out the door. With a bunch of fake ones too, which was kind of frustrating because they were like, "Everybody go, okay, just kidding. Everybody go, okay, you're just kidding." And so we had like 4 or 5 tearful goodbyes, So by the time we actually went to "Yeah, you'll be back in an hour. We don't care." I'm like, "Oh no, I'm actually leaving this time." Like, "Oh dang it, didn't get a chance to say goodbye." But just your typical hurry up and wait over and over again. But finally deployed at the end, by the end of September. Deployed with a lot of great guys. Ended up at Qatar. It was a lot of EOD guys there. I think there was like 40 EOD dudes just on a base, and I think it was I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I think it ended up being Camp Sather, Al Udeid. So it was Al Udeid before it was Al Udeid. And basically we built that from a bare base. But I mean, there were so many EOD guys. We really didn't have a mission because we were just kind of waiting to move forward. So before September was over, before 2001 was over, my unit, or me and one other guy, we ended up forward deploying to Kandahar, Afghanistan. Because they were trying to do some demining, and I guess they were trying to, Kandahar at the time, all they had was the bare base with just the flight line and maybe the terminal, and that's about it. That's the Northern Alliance guys, but most of it was mines. All of it was mines. And so they needed something. They had some Swedish sappers in there that had this huge flail that had these giant boat anchor chains with huge metal claws in the back that would literally rotor down to 6 feet deep. And they were using that to demine the area. They just chew up and mulch entire forest. It was crazy. You could hear it a long way away. Well, they couldn't go into small areas. So, I mean, what the Air Force was like, "Hey, Air Force, we have this ARTS," which was the remote control, Bobcat looking thing. And it had a bunch of attachments. And I was one of the only guys at Al Udeid certified to drive it. And they wanted to test this new flail attachment that was supposed to also do the same thing, chew up the dirt and supposedly get into the nooks and crannies that the Swedish guys couldn't get to. So we pushed forward to Kandahar. It was crazy. You got to do that 2 hours of flying super low and throwing up in bags because it was nuts. And then we got to do that super 1-inch stop combat land. It was fun. As an Air Force guy, I'm sitting here bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. This is 2001, so Air Force doesn't get any tactical training. So here I am. "Hey guys, I'm in Afghanistan." I get off, it's at night, and all we have is flares going around the flight line. It was one of those surreal things that oh my goodness, I'm actually seeing this. Is this really cool with my own eyes? I'm like, wow. And so, we ended up linking up with some Marine Corps and some Navy EOD guys at that place. And it was funny because the guy that was my Marine Corps corporal in charge of my the EOD school, Corporal Klein, he was there. He's like, "Airman Ryker, what the F are you doing here?" I'm like, "Corporal Klein." He's like, "It's Staff Sergeant Klein. Dang it now." It was just literally just most surreal. Of all the places to run into the guy, I'm running into in Afghanistan. It was crazy. It was bare base. I mean, no showers, and they didn't understand at the time that Afghanistan and Kandahar region was basically Colorado. And Colorado in winter is really, really cold, in the Rockies. And that's pretty much the altitude and where they are in the world, the hemispherically wide, so it's the exact same climate there. And they pushed us forward from Qatar, which we all had just summer weight desert stuff. And so we had no heavy cold weather gear, and they put us in Colorado, on a bare base. And so, we were borrowing and stealing any different things to keep us warm, working with the Northern Alliance guys. And basically our mission was trying to demine and clear some areas. Ended up though that the flail didn't work. I mean, we were walking behind this thing trying to get it to work for like the longest time, and like the chains that they were using to try to slap the ground to blow up mines ended up not being sufficient. And so we were falling behind this thing, fixing it as it went because it constantly broke without knowing we were basically still walking through a live minefield. So,
Oh my gosh.
once they figured that out, they shut down the mission, and we finally got to go home at the end of March of 2002. But one of the cool stories, one of my funny stories I always like to bring up, like when I make fun of my army compatriots, we had a system out there where green rocks meant it was a known cleared area. There was no mines. Of red rocks, we'd put those around the border of known mine areas. Like, this is a minefield, do not pass the red rocks. And then blue rocks were like, hey, this was a minefield. We cleared it, so you can still go on it. But, just be aware if you see something suspicious, pay it mind. That was the kind of setup. So after doing that for many, many months, I think it was like, February, maybe the beginning of March, more guys were coming in because we had cleared out more space. And so I'm walking back from the toilet barrel, and I see this army guy taking red rocks and making a pile out of them. I'm like, what is this guy doing? I'm like, hey, I'm still an airman, like 3-stripe airman, and this guy is like, a private. I'm like, I'm intimidated by everybody because I'm Air Force. Like, what are you doing here? And the guy's like, well, my sergeant told me that I couldn't put my foxhole near red rocks, and then things are everywhere. So I figured if I put them all in one spot, I could put my foxhole anywhere I want. You're meeting the letter, buddy, but I think you're missing the intent.
Oh my gosh.
So I got to go back to my sergeant. I'm like, so you got to check this out. And obviously that ran up the flagpole, and it was crazy. But anyway, by the end, they basically told us like, hey, just go back. And so 2 airmen were given orders to go back home. We're like, okay, we're just going to leave then. They're like, yep, just go home. So me and one other airman, another Air Force EOD guy, went up to the talk. We're like, hey, they told us to go home. They're like, okay, where do you want to go? And so we literally got to pick our place. Like, I heard there's a beer tent at Thumb Raid. Can we fly there? They're like, yeah, you sure can. So we flew to Thumb Raid, hung out with the EOD guys there because we had already basically stayed longer than that first rotation. So the new guys were coming in. So we're coming in like grizzled war vets or something like that.
Wow.
So we went from there. Then we went to to LED, and we're like, oh my goodness, this place got huge since the last time we were here, and caught the rotator back home. And that was our first deployment.
Wow.
Deployed again in 2003, did the invasion of Iraq again. So basically did an unnamed location in Saudi Arabia. Got to do the Iraq invasion thing. Ended up taking Talil at the south end of Iraq. Basically set up that base. It was right around the time frame. Jessica Lynch, she ended up getting captured. And there was this big thing about trying to get her back. That was the area we were operating in. That happened when we were there. One of the coolest things, though, it's like many people didn't know that, but check it out if you're interested in like ancient civilization. The ziggurat of is like in the background of Talil, and it's like this ancient Sumerian building from like thousands of years ago, and it's like the oldest structure, like man-made structure on the planet. It's just like in the background, like, what's that? Like, oh, you mean the ziggurat of I'm like,
what?
Yes.
The ziggurat of that is so cool.
And like, actually, it was kind of cool. One of the guys, one of my other my buddies, he replaced us. He took over for us after our tour was done there, and they were doing some mine sweeping or like ordnance sweeps around the base of it, and ended up finding this crazy like conical like ancient Sumerian Sanskrit thing, and he showed me the pictures of it. He's like, I don't know what to do with this, and so he gave it to his boss. His boss is like, I'm not going to touch this thing. So his boss gave it to their boss, like, this is a cultural icon. So we couldn't find anyone. Apparently, this is all secondhand. So, if they couldn't find anyone to take it, they just gave it to like a vendor that was like selling like souvenirs at the base of the thing. Like, here, we don't want to steal your cultural treasures. Here you go. We don't know what to do with this. Here you go. So we have no idea what it went to, but I got some really cool pictures of this really weird thing. And I ended up doing search. It was like a Sumerian cone or something like that they used to bless their buildings. It was just like the weirdest stuff you run into out there. But
that is crazy.
Yeah, I can't take credit for that story. That was my buddy Dustin. He was he's the one that found that thing, shared me with a picture. It was just like, but that was the area we were operating in. It was just really cool. But we did some purple ops during that one too. We had one of the guys when we were there, a Marine Staff Sergeant Gravely at the time, he came down walking down Tampa after Rolling Thunder went up. He was walking down and he was like, just was looking for other EOD shops, and eventually ended up at our shop at Toledo. He just walked in, he was like, looking for EOD guys, and that's how he talked. We're like, hey, what's up? He's like, I'm Staff Sergeant Gravely. I'm from Marine Corps EOD. I want to hang out with you guys. I'm like, all right, dude, come on in. And like, he hung out for us for a little while because he really didn't have like a mission. Apparently, everything was kind of up in the air. I think the mail call. Remember Arlie Ermy? He was the guy that did the drill sergeant during in Full Metal Jacket. He actually came out to us while we were there and did like an episode of Mail Call where he blew up a watermelon with a blasting cap. And it was just weird stuff.
Wow.
But one of the coolest thing was like the first stop that we did downtown. There was they were trying to recover some mortars. We're getting mortared every day, from one of the towns from Nazaria. And so one of their intel guys found where all the tubes were, was in the schoolyard, of course, right? And so we were going to go and pick them all up. And so we were going to look for security, and we're like, hey, we're looking for some real security. And the Air Force, the guys were like, why don't you take our security? And we're like, I guess. And so we show up and, we start working the site. And I still remember distinctly, I'm sitting there, I find this room that has like a pile of mortar tubes. I'm like, okay, this looks heavy. I wonder how many trips it's going to take. And I turn around and like 15 to 20 Iraqi males come like all just come tromping into the room. Like, oh my God, am I about to be killed? And they start grabbing the tubes and start bringing them to the trailer for us. So I'm like, where the heck is our security? And so we walk out. And the Air Force guys were overwhelmed. They didn't have the training. They didn't know what to do. I mean, it's not their fault. I mean, it was a full village overwhelming their position, and no one had the confidence. Like, what, you can start opening fire? Wow. There was nothing they could really do. So we basically got what we can. We just took the tubes, left the bases and everything like that, left the area, went back to the TOC. We're like, hey, we're not going to go with the Air Force guys anymore. Well, we got back to the compound, and Gravely's like, I got a whole battalion of bored Marines on the other side of the flight line. Let me see if they want to do something. I'm like, all right, Gravely, go on over there. Go ahead and borrow a truck, right? He comes back. He has like 17 strikers behind him because they're like literally all bored. They're like, yeah, we'll come. So we roll back to the same spot, but this time with like an array of like an armored Marine regiment. I don't even know the names of the sizes and stuff, but all these armored vehicles. These two Air Force guys in a soft top Humvee. We show up and the same crowd of villagers come in. The Marines are like, stop. And I remember specifically they got like, up to the first Marine and they try to like touch him. And he basically just threw him on the ground aggressively. The whole village is like, okay, we're out. And we worked in perfect peace and harmony for the rest of the operation.
Wow.
But it was cool because we ended up working with those same guys like that agreement to do stuff. They saw that we needed security. They had nothing to do. So we started rolling with those Marines and ended up creating a joint operation just purely on the fly. So
wow.
I mean, it was really cool. So,
wow.
I mean, we did a number of operations there trying to, settle the area. Just weird stuff that looking back when I went back, I deployed again in 07 back to Iraq. But things we're doing in 03, we're driving around in soft top Humvees with like the zip windows open, through like marketplaces or market squares with just throngs of people just like looking at you right through the window. Like looking back on it, just like, wow, that was not very secure.
Yeah.
So that was 2003. After I got back from that, I ended up PCSing from Langley Air Force Base to Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada. And that was awesome, man. I really loved the Nellis shop. They have the range bases, and so they're always working up in Tonopah and the Creech Air Force Base, and basically everywhere between Reno and Vegas is bombing range. It's like the largest active bombing range in the world. And so Nellis Air Force Base, their job is to essentially, the pilots come over, they blow up the targets. EOD comes out, we disarm whatever bombs are left over, the things that dud fire. I think we typically have a 20% dud fire rate. So they go out there and they clear all the ones out there, and all the training ones that are full of concrete, they expose the concrete. And once they make the target safe, contractors come and they remove all the stuff and they rebuild the targets, and then the pilots come and blow it up again. So that's the cycle. We have to clear it so that the targets could go, the contractors could go back and rebuild it. But it's like millions and millions of acres of just open desert. And it's some of the coolest stuff, man. I'll tell you, it's like at night, you never seen a blanket of stars like that, because you're like high elevation, like high altitude. So it's all already thin. There's no humidity. And then on top of that, there's nobody. There is zero light pollution. And so you're seeing like ancient man, like stars. And it's just like, you can't see a spot that's black, like a dark spot. You look at it really close and like, oh, that's a star in there. It's just like one of those, life experiences. It was just really cool. So I stationed there for a while. I really enjoyed the mission. It was really cool. But deployed from there. I think I did a Pakistan tour, just kind of like a sustainment tour, and then I did another tour in 2007 to Iraq. And that was like the crazier of the ones. We got there January of 2007, and there till like June or July 2007. And I mean, it was crazy. I mean, we were doing, like 15 to 20 IEDs a day. I mean,
Wow.
that's how it ended up working is, we'd have a rotating schedule, a 5-day schedule where you do like standby, and then you do like a recovery day, and then you base support, then route clearance mission, So basically every day in a rotating schedule, they had a number of teams, and we were team hotel, that would go through that schedule. And so the way it worked is that you'd get on standby at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you were responsible for all calls from 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the morning. But the thing was, you ended up generating so many calls between those 24 hours that it usually took you an additional 12 hours to get through your queue of stuff that you accumulated in the thing. So typically standby was 36 hours, and that first 12 hours, the other team, now they started picking up all the new calls that come from 6 in the morning, and while you're still working on all the calls that came before 6 o'clock in the morning. And so it was intense. I mean, we had VBID factories. I mean, we had caches, we had like just entrapment situations, arrays. I mean, it was crazy the amount of stuff and the diversity of stuff that we saw. And, I mean, our security team took a lot of hits. They were there. Felt bad for them. They were National Guard types. They were a mortar team. I think I want to say they're out of New York. But they were, when we got there for our 6-month tour, they were already there a year. So they had an 18-month tour, and we were on the back end of it. We were on the back end of it. So we were at their most burned out. And that's when, if you were to go back and check out, the ops tempo of the war, the IED war was at its peak between January 2007 and July 2007. That was the peak of it. And it just fell off a cliff when, I guess, something happened on the Iran-Iraq border. I think it got sealed or something, and all IED incidents just dropped off a cliff like July, August of 2007. But during that time frame, that was this last 6 months of their deployment. And if you were looking at, of all the places that got hit, the region, the area we were working, the Baghdad International Airport, BIOP, that was the hot spot for IED. So we were in the hot spot during the hottest part. That's where these guys are going. And we started off with a security element that had 2 lead vehicles, two follow vehicles, and then a team chief vehicle. So 3 in the back, 2 in the front. By the time we left in July, they lost so many guys and lost so many trucks that they only had enough for 1 truck in front, 1 truck in back, and they had to put a gunner in ours. So I mean, it was nuts. And they were paying a price. We our guys, we had some guys that had to deal with some stuff too. I mean, but it was one of those ones where again, you got to do and see things that, you just couldn't believe you're actually seeing with your eyes. I was always a volunteer person. So whenever something happened, I was like, hey, we need a person too. My hand was always up. And, 75% of the time was something crappy, but 25% of the time was usually something really cool. And so in this particular time, they needed somebody to do a night insertion in a Black Hawk with an ODA to search out a hit spot that they thought was the local boss for the entire region. And so there I am, Air Force guy, never using NVGs before, sitting out the end of a Black Hawk, looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing that thing from like that movie where I'm flying a Black Hawk over like things. Like, this is cool. I'm that guy now. And I get down on the ground, they're all doing their stuff. And I'm like, does these NVGs actually work? And I take it off. I can't even see my hand. So, yep, these things actually work. So,
wow.
I mean, just like, flying by the seat of your pants on a lot of stuff. But, that's just kind of how it was. It was just, some things would happen where, they'd have IEDs just set up in entrapment situations where they put things across the street, so that people would drive off the street, but that's where they actually put the IED was in the actual on the side, just other entrapment situations like that where they'd, there were multiple kidnappings while we were there. I mean, and they had us at some weird bases, some FOBs like Fob Mabadia and Yusufia, ended up just encountering some strange stuff, but loved the team I was there with, made some really good friends. Definitely, a lot of stuff went down on that one. So, that's, I ended up getting the Bronze Star for that, and got back out. So I got back in 2007, and then 2008, I had the opportunity to take orders to Okinawa, but at that point I was about done.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
there's they were saying, hey, at that point I think I was at 11 years, 97 to 08. So yeah, about 11 years. And they were like, hey, so this is it. This is the one. This is the commitment one, right? And they were like, man, you're already halfway over the hump. And I was like, yeah, but it took a really long time to get here. I want to do another one of this whole thing again, and I think, the people I was with, they probably thought it was abrupt, but it was something I've been thinking about for a while. And so, I separated and, basically made my intentions clear in the middle of 2008. At that point, I took a permissive TDY and all that stuff and did separation paperwork and ended up getting a job as an instructor at the EOD school. So I went over and joined that, went from Nellis Air Force Base where there's zero humidity to the panhandle of Florida in the middle of summer where there's nothing but humidity. And of course, NAV School EOD, especially the Ground Ordnance Division, which I started working at, was all outside. So it was definitely a weather shock, and smacked in the face with a hot mop every morning walking out the door. But worked there at NAV School EOD for over a couple of years. I think it was a year and a half, 2 years I worked there. Enjoyed it. Got to pin a couple guys, which was very satisfying. And before that time, I'd always been deployed, so I never really had been part of the EOD, the memorial. To be honest, I hadn't gone to it before I started going there. And then being so close to it and being such a big part of the the community and the event schedule, honestly, I met my wife down there during that time frame. So after I got out, started teaching there, I met her, and we started going to the balls, while we were down there, and it was very cool. Definitely made a lot of memories. Living in Destin was just cool. Like I said, teaching there, and then after I taught there for about a year and a half, there was an opportunity to move over to one of the regional training centers at Eglin Air Force Base. They had they needed a counter IED subject matter expert. So basically I put in my application, got that job, and transitioned to be a different government contractor, but this time, being supporting the security forces, doing their pre-deployment training at Eglin, 96 GCTS. I did that for, I think a couple more years before the company I was working with brought me up to their corporate office up in Charleston, South Carolina. So I worked as a defense contractor up there for another 10 years. Still doing a lot of EOD work, supporting EOD guys. Did a couple of shooting courses for guys getting trained up for that. We also did a lot of training aids, a lot of support items. And so, it was pretty cool being able to use my counter ID experience to help develop training aids and lesson plans and curriculums that the Air Force and other EOD units found useful. So for the next 10 or so years, professional instructor working that kind of angle. And it was good. It was definitely gratifying, but it was around that time that I started discovering high performance driving, and that sent me down an entirely different venture of life. So, but that's my EOD history. It was interesting and fun.
That is great.
There's sure lots of sprinkled stories in there that obviously I'm skipping for brevity, I guess.
Wow. That's great. So tell us about how you got into high performance driving and track heroes.
Okay. So like after I got back in 2007, I did start going to the mental health stuff. The Air Force offered it. I started going to it. I figured I'd give it a fair shot. Figured something had to have happened, and it was just cool to be able to talk about stuff. So I took that stuff seriously. After I separated from the military, I continued to see the VA and did that. I still see the VA. I mean, that's just a fact of life. Once you get out, you're going to be going to VA appointments probably until you're done. But I continued to see the mental health side, but I was just starting to get a plateau where I wasn't really getting any better. I felt like I was just banging my head against the wall, starting to get frustrated. Around the time of 2017, a buddy of mine owned a Subaru dealership, and he was like, hey man, you got to come down to the dealership. And I was like, I have 2 kids. I'm like, listen, dude, unless you got a 4-door car that's manual transmission and fast as heck, I'm not coming. I figured that was an impossible task. He's like, dude, I got 2. Let me introduce you to the Subaru STI. I'm like, okay, let me see what's going on here. So he introduced me to that. It was an awesome car. I was thinking about getting into motorcycles. So the wife was excited that this one had 2 more wheels. So she got all behind it and was like, yes, sports car, better than motorcycle. But as I was going through the process, he introduced me to a buddy of his that does high performance driver education, one of the other guys that worked in the dealership.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they call them, HPDE. And so essentially what happens is that in all the racetracks across the entire world, I mean, they even do this in, Europe and stuff, but, across the country, at least, all these racetracks, when there isn't a big race going on them, they lease those tracks out to various car clubs, like the Porsche Club of America, the different chapters of the Porsche Club, or the BMW Club. And essentially what the club does is they lease the club or lease the track, and then they open the event to high performance driver education, where they provide instructors who sit in the car with you with a radio. You bring your own car, prep it for the track however you see fit. And basically they put you on the track with that instructor where you could drive as fast as you could reasonably drive, learning the racing line and understanding the dynamics of high performance driving. So it's not race cars. So you're not like, door to door, like getting the turns. It's a driver education thing. So you can only pass in designated areas, which are always straightaways. You can only do it with the car in front points the other car by. It's like, hey, I see you in my rear view. You caught up to me. You're faster than me. Hey, pass me in this next straightaway. And then that one car passes you. And if there's another car, so it's orderly, it's safe. There's obviously mistakes, sometimes people make when they get, a little bit too aggressive with their car. But they break it into 5 run groups that go from beginners that have instructors, and then the intermediate with instructors, and then the top 3 are the instructor classes and the solo groups, the guys that have done so well they could drive on that track solo. And so I started going to this, and I was like starting off at the bottom. I was bringing my STI to these track events, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm feeling amazing. This is great. I'm like, just like feeling amazing afterwards. And I was doing it for a number of years, from 2017 to 2020. And around 2020, I was really struggling with the VA, with the mental health. I was really hitting a brick wall, not doing anything. They were starting to suggest medication. And I had some issues with medication with them before. They had me on opioids when I got out because of my knee. And so, when I wanted to get off of them, there was an issue with that and some challenges. And I just didn't want to get into that whole medication side of stuff again. Mm-hmm. And so, but I was feeling great on the track. And so I reached out to a buddy of mine. He was named Wes, and he's our co-founder of Track Heroes. And I was like, hey, Wes, I'm not getting this mindfulness stuff. They tell me to blank my mind, and instantly my mind goes a million miles per hour. Just not going to happen. And I can't get now or in the moment. I'm always thinking about 10 things down the road and 20 things in the past. Being here is tough. But when I'm driving on the car, in the car on the track, and for weeks afterwards, I am in the moment. Is this mindfulness? He's like, that's a good question. So we ended up kicking off like 1,600 hours of medical research, because Wes is going through to get his doctorate in something else. And so he had access to, real medical research journals and stuff as part of his doctoral program. And so he started searching, we started talking and basically checking out the neuroscience behind, how the brain works. And what we ended up finding and confirming is that high performance driving does actually have positive mental health benefits. And then we were able to refine exactly how and why it was helping. And then we crafted Track Heroes and our program, the Adaptive Control Program, to maximize those benefits and give guys and gals, veterans and first responders, a track for long-term sustained mental health and improved mental health. Like,
wow. That's incredible.
So, yeah, it's been exciting. And so that's what we started our charity on. That's what we started our Track Heroes based on that science. We worked with the BMW Performance Center here in Spartanburg, South Carolina, where they took their M School curriculum, where they, put, people that pay thousands of dollars to go through their driving courses and get certified as an M School driver. They opened that curriculum, and we resequenced the events in such a way to hit certain neurological gateways. And they approved the curriculum, and their safety guys and lawyer guys all approved our sequencing. And essentially, we now provide, like, completely free to veterans and first responders access to this course, where they just show up and they drive through these crazy exercises and drills where they learn high performance driving skills, but throughout the event, they don't realize they're actually also getting some positive mental health benefits. At the end of the course, we go back and we explain to them why this helped. We explain the science beside explaining why this helped. And then we also give them exercises to help mitigate some of the issues that we point out to them. So at the end, they walk out with basically a positive experience, but with a lot of skills to help them on the back end to help improve their mental health over a long period of time.
Wow. So what are the benefits that you guys are seeing from it?
Okay, well, First, let me tell you, I mean, the science behind it, I mean, the part, if you don't mind, I just want to get into that just a little bit. Like,
Yes,
so
please.
what we found is like, this part I think is the most exciting because, you'd think that the driving cars, the part that excited me the most, because that's where I got. But I'm telling you, the stuff that we're finding on the neurological side is just like, it's actually like the cutting edge of neuroscience right now. And we're just dudes that just stumbled upon it. So essentially
Wow.
what we found is that a lot of people, when they're doing research, they're looking through their things through a straw. So they don't really see associations, connections that are immediately next to each other. And so when we were looking through and doing our research, we basically saw that certain systems in the brain reacted and interacted in certain ways. And we saw that that could cause a dysregulation that could cause like almost every single symptom that most veterans claim to have to suffer through. And so from that dysregulation, we came up with a plan and a process to fix that dysregulation. And I'm telling you, I'm going to explain it right now. A lot of people, like most veterans, when we explain it to them as part of our program, they're like, dude, you just explained, you described me perfectly. And that demystification is part of our program. So essentially, it's about the fight or flight system. Most normal people, we get into it. It's like, we're fighting a saber-toothed tiger. That's what the old caveman version of the fight or flight system is. Bad thing happens to you. Chemicals and hormones get released in your brain and your body that help you to survive and fight that saber-toothed tiger. Then at the end, when you're done fighting the saber-toothed tiger, there's a system in place to bring you back down, relax that muscle, and let you rest and recover. And that's your sympathetic and your parasympathetic system. So what happens when your sympathetic system activates is that hormones called CRH get released in your brain that cause anxiety, dilating of pupils, increased heart rate. They amping you up. Also, ACTH get released in your body, and that disrupts your sleep-rest cycle. So when you're fighting the saber-toothed tiger, you don't fall asleep. What happens is that when the ACTH eventually makes its way to the adrenal glands release cortisol. Cortisol makes its way back to the brain, and once it makes its way back to the brain, one CRH, one ACTH, and the cortisol all get reabsorbed back into your body. And so your body's like, ugh, relax. And it's like a muscle relaxing, and it's like, and it initiates the parasympathetic, which is the recovery system. And that's how the system is supposed to work. But in veterans and guys and gals that deal with high occupational stress, like chronically, we're triggering that system over and over and over again. We're constantly triggering that fight or flight. In the military, it's because, maybe we're fighting a war, disarming a bomb. Maybe we're doing something else. But like any other muscle in the human body, the more you use it, the stronger it gets. The more stronger it gets, the more you want to use it. And so the longer that we've had that high occupational stress, we've basically broken what they call the salient switch, or the switch that decides whether or not, we need to activate the sympathetic system and start going to the crazy mode and fight the saber tooth, or when it's time to, that's not necessarily, that's not 100% necessary. Well, veterans and first responders, we trigger that system so often that essentially the adrenals become unresponsive. It causes a blockage at the adrenal glands. And so what happens is that because that blockage happens and the adrenals become unresponsive, veterans get no cortisol response. And that is the key indicator of that feeling dead inside. That where veterans are like, I need to do this crazy adrenaline thing just to get a blip on the radar. You need like a 10 on the Richter scale just for a veteran to be like, huh. That's because they have a low cortisol response or a flatline response. They don't have that emotional feeling. They don't have the feels anymore. And that's because they have no cortisol.
Wow.
Now, in addition, their ACTH, that builds up in their system, right? So now that instead of being reabsorbed, because when the ACTH gets the adrenals, they're supposed to be absorbed in the system. Well, now that it's getting blocked up, now it's getting backed up. And so now that ACTH is staying in your system. And one of the key symptoms of that is insomnia. I'll tell you, most veterans I know, 2:30 they wake up, then 3:30, then 4:30, then 5:30, then 6, and then they give up and they just stay awake. That's just about everybody. And that's because you have an overwhelming amount of ACTH in your system causing the disruption in your sleep-rest cycle. Wow. And the CRH, remember that first thing, right? The CRH is still in your mind. And every single time you hit that trigger, another CRH gets released, causing anxiety, causing, fear associations, causing, the high rapid heart rate, the super amped up veteran, the hypervigilant veteran. That's because they have too much CRH in their system. And that causes, paranoia and other fear associations, which causes them to hit the button more often, which causes more hormone, which causes more triggers. And so because of that, you'll end up with a massive backlog of CRH and a massive backlog of ACTH and no cortisol response. Mm-hmm. Now, how many veterans does that describe?
Wow.
Just about all of them, right?
That's what incredible.
So that's what we found. That's what we found. That it's called the hypothalamus, pituitary gland, adrenal gland axis, or the HPA axis. And dysregulation of it causes all that to happen. And it is like literally a 1-for-1. Like when we describe this to the veterans at the end of our program, they're all like, that's exactly me. It's exactly me. And so the next thing we do is now we want to start healing it. So in order to heal it, what we determined back in 2020 is that you could regulate that HPA axis with a top-down regulation. What we figured out is that you could actually control that system through the ACC, or the anterior cingulate cortex. To keep it super basic, there's two sides of it, okay? There's the backside, which has the all your experience and life knowledge. That's where if you think you know what you're doing, the rostral or the back part of your ACC is activated. So that's like, for an example, you walk a German Shepherd into a room with 100 people, right? Some people are going to say, ooh, puppy. Some people are going to say, dog. Essentially, you're going to get 100 completely different emotional responses to that neutral event of the dog walking into the room. That is the dorsal or the back part of your ACC. That's, I know what I'm doing. But of course, it's a neurological rut that has all your learned experiences, but also has all your trauma, has all your hair triggers. That's where, if I know what I'm doing, that's where we've been in the back end. We've been flexing that muscle and using that thing over and over again. So our program, we want to get to the front side of the ACC, or the rostral side. That is the learning and exploring part of the mind. And so what our program does is, at the BMW Center, remember I told you about the specific sequence of events? Well, we put super challenging events up front. Threshold braking, we're like, oh, braking, I know what that is. Well, if you're trying to go from 120 miles per hour without engaging your anti-lock brakes, very quickly, suddenly you're going to realize, wow, I don't actually know how to threshold brake. And so it starts challenging these guys. And then we do the next exercise, which is skid pad, which is very challenging and frustrating, because they'll be constantly wiping out and spinning their vehicle out. All of this to challenge the ACC to say, I don't know what I'm doing. I do not possess the skills and knowledge necessary to complete the task put in front of me. And so that is the challenge of our program, the cognitive conflict to engage the rostral or the front side of the ACC. Then the rest of the day, it is building on those skills. We're doing additional events which are easier, which build up their skill levels, build up their confidence. And we're basically laying new neural paths, because in order to lay new neural paths, you have to have repetition, which we're doing with multiple events, and dopamine, which we do with reward. So at the end of the event, guys and gals that do the best are recognized and awarded. Guys and gals that are improving throughout are constantly reinforced. And so you're getting dopamine from positive reinforcement and hanging out with brothers and sisters. And you're also getting repetition. And the reason why we chose motorsports is that when one of the research studies that we found was that they actually hooked up Formula One drivers to an MRI and had them do a mental lap where they closed their eyes and drove through a racetrack, right? Then they had normal people that weren't race car drivers do the same thing. And they wanted to see what parts of the brain were activated and the strength of those responses. They wanted to see, if the responses were stronger in the drivers versus the non-drivers, to indicate that those areas are strengthened by their profession of driving. And it was almost crazy. Like the parts that are strengthened by by high performance driving are the exact parts of the brain that are typically atrophied, underused in the veteran community. So we are laying new neural paths in specific areas that are very often underused. So we're strengthening parts of the mind that are typically underused and under strengthened. And so we're making a stronger veteran, while also laying brand new paths and fresh brain matter, but laying them all with positivity and kicking butt. And so at the end of the event, we demystify it to them, like, hey, does this describe you? And they're like, yes. We tell them that the goal is to limit the amount of triggers that they have. Take out the amount of triggers, because if they lower the amount of triggers, the hormone basically imbalance will eventually catch up. The adrenals do catch up eventually, and eventually all the ACTH and the CRH do get reabsorbed if the system doesn't get messed with a lot. And eventually the cortisol response comes back. So now the veteran is now able to sleep better. They don't have that constant anxiety. And honestly, that CRH is what causes a lot of substance abuse, because they do feel some relief from the CRH through substance abuse. It blocks some of the receptors that the CRH interacts with. So that actually drives veteran substance abuse on top. So, the CRH going down, their bad habits going down, their ACTH going down, their cortisol response coming back up, all from limiting the amount of triggers. And we show them that that's the problem. And then we tell them to close their eyes and mentally drive around the track. One of the last exercises we have them do is drive around the full autocross, which is a special configuration that they don't typically do for normal events. But we wanted a long course so that at the end, our guys could close their eyes and we're like, okay, you're driving down the straightaway. You're approaching turn one. Where's your brake point? Where's your turn point? Where's your apex? Where's your track out? You see turn two. And we walk them through mentally where they visualize driving through the track. And throughout the course, we reinforce that with other exercises where they do that again. At the end, we have them do that again and tell them that if they find themselves in a place where they feel overactivated, they could re-energize or reactivate their racing mind by going through that mental lap again. And so by giving them the mental lap, and we give them some other things as well, some other exercises and some other challenges to continue learning, and other things that, spouses could do to help, trigger that those new things to help them out too at home. And basically just with the overall goal of trying to lower the amount of triggers and trying to get that dysregulation back in line to give these guys a shot. And so, that's how they do. They go through that event. And so that's our initial event. That's get them read into the program. Then we work with various car clubs to get access to those HPDE events, right? Those ones that I told you about that I started going to. We're working with those car clubs and they're providing us with free slots, which we then give to the veterans or first responders that have gone through our program so that they have another track, they can learn more tracks, they get different mental laps, they can continue growing in the community and expanding and exploring high performance driving. And we facilitate that as well. So that's our overall thing. That's our overall science. And so far, I mean, just we measure a person's activation of sympathetic versus parasympathetic, and we measure them before the event, after the event. Then we follow up 1 month, and I think we do a 3-month post-event follow-up as well to kind of gauge where their activation is and how if our lessons and the stuff that we provide them have helped them to get more on the parasympathetic or the rest recovery side. And guys are reporting like 40% more relaxed, 40% better sleep, 30% less anxiety. And those are all taken anonymously. We have them fill out anonymous surveys. And so we put it into a database of like guys at post-event on average feel 40% more relaxed, 35% more, better sleep, that kind of stuff. So the program has been proven, the data that we've gotten so far has proven that this actually does help in the long run. We've been pushing this for a little while, and that whole idea, that whole theory was something that we came up in 2021. Well, in 2023, there was a British and a Canadian study that was done in February that was just released, and they validated and proved that top-down regulation of the HPA axis was actually possible using the ACC. See, we're talking neuroscience, and you're following. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
But they didn't know how to use it in the field. They knew it could help, but they didn't know how to actually use it. So there was another 3 more studies were done, and they were released in June of 2023. And they all validated the findings of the first study that the HPA axis could be top-down regulated, that it was possible with the ACC. But 100% of their study to do that was pharmaceutical. They wanted to find a drug that could access the ACC. So instead of coming through some other stuff, they wanted to find drugs to be able to push this HPA top-down regulation. So ours is the only one. And so right now we're working with the state of South Carolina. They funded us. They gave us an earmark for some additional events this year in 2024. Previously in 2023, we've been doing one of these BMW events a year, but working with the EOD Warrior Foundation, you guys have already offered to sponsor one whole event. So you guys are having a dedicated EOD Warrior Foundation event, hopefully 2. So hopefully if that first one goes well, we'll be able to get a second one. But the state funding allowed us to do 2 more. Another charity that we've been working with, or a veteran support agency called Upstate Warrior Solutions, they've verbally agreed to do another one. So that's 5 after we've only done 1 per year before. So 2024 is looking to be just incredible. And we're looking to have an exponential growth in the amount of guys and gals that we could actually support with our program. And we're really excited about it.
Wow.
The neuroscience is catching up to us, and we're going to present to the state like, hey, we want to do like a real research. Cause like right now we're not scientists, this is, we're collecting stuff and we're collecting evidence, but we want to get some scientists, some doctors to join in our program, doing actual research on this, because we want to prove that the evidence that we're seeing is true. But we also want to do a proof that you can activate the rostral part of the ACC with a cognitive confrontation, that you don't need drugs. And I think that if we could prove that you could do that would be a benefit to many veteran programs, is that we could configure, or we could look at many different charities and many different organizations that help with veteran events, like maybe sequencing them a little bit differently to help activate and access this front part of the ACC. And I think it could help justify and validate many programs that, have been helpful for the veterans, but we haven't really been able to quantify how and why before.
That is just mind-blowing. How exciting. So can you walk us through what an actual event looks like?
Yeah, absolutely.
For the veteran?
Sorry about that. Water got me.
You're fine.
So the first thing to do is they're going to the BMW event. We let them know, where the event meeting is, basically give them reporting instructions, but they show up at the Springfield, at the Spartanburg Marriott, where we provide them with a hotel room. So they show up the day before. If the event typically is on a Friday, they show up on Thursday and they get a free room that has, and a goodie bag that has it's a Track Hero shirt and, all the good little, swag and stuff that everybody likes. And we do a team dinner where all the participants and the staff, we all get together and we have a team dinner.
How many people typically go through a program?
Yeah, so typically our events can handle 8 to 12 people per iteration. Recently, we've been doing iterations of 8, but we could plus it up to 12, especially if there's the funding for it. That's typically always the hold up is this is our biggest event. It's the most expensive one because basically the guys do show up. They show up at the event or at the Spartanburg Marriott. Like I said, we got the hotel room for them completely covered, and we also have a team dinner. And I'll tell you that a lot of guys come up to me afterwards and wow, the team dinner was almost as good as the entire event. Because a lot of these guys didn't really have a chance to hang out with other veterans. And so, they're away from the flagpole. They're hanging out with like-minded individuals. They get to let their hair down, essentially, and just be their veteran selves without, self-censoring or wondering who they're offended by their off-color jokes and remarks. We get to have those. And so, so it's just fun, and we do the dinner there. But then in the morning, we cover breakfast at the Marriott. And then we transport them to the BMW Performance Center. And this is world-class BMW accommodations. It is their performance center where they do all their events in the East Coast. So it is world-class type of facility.
Wow.
We go in there, we have a dedicated classroom, and the guys will go in there, guys and gals will go in there. Typically there's snacks and stuff. I mean, they go all out there at their little cafe lobby and stuff. So all the refreshments and stuff they need. And they go through about an hour of classroom where they get taught the fundamentals of high performance drive, and they talk about braking and turning and the things like that, and get introduced to it by one of the BMW instructors. And then they go out into the cars, and for the rest of the morning, like I said, through a certain sequence of events, they get to jump in brand new BMW M3s, M2s, M4 competitions. This year they'll be driving 2024 BMW M vehicles. So I mean, it's the newest, top of the line, best performance vehicles that BMW has to offer. These are the vehicles these guys get to drive, and they get to drive them literally as hard as they want. The instructors are you could drive it harder than that, and they really push the guys to not be gentle in these vehicles, and the guys and the gals, they absolutely love it. And so they do exercises in the morning. At lunchtime, we have a catered lunch by the BMW Performance Center. So it's catered by BMW chefs and stuff. So it's world-class, amazing food. And then they finish up the rest of the event, doing driving exercise until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. At the end of the event, we have an award ceremony because there's a number of competitions where, we give out, actually, I think these are gold, silver, and bronze medals to the guys and gals that do well during the event. We have a rat race and a few other timed events. And, that's part of the pat in the back for doing a great job. After that, we do the introduction to the science where we describe the HPA access. We talk about this regulation, and we show them that the skills, how useful they are. And at the end, they are wow. And we do an interview with them when they're all wide eyed and stuff like that. And, they're always positive feedback. They really love it. And at the end, we go back to the hotel room and we provide dinner again one last time for a team dinner where everyone gets to talk about how they were inverted and going down through the turn, and everyone's doing Top Gun things when they're talking about their different turns. And I almost got you on the rat race, and it's just a lot of fun. A lot of really strong friendships and relationships, if they weren't already existing before the event, definitely get created during that event. Then in the morning they wake up, they get breakfast, they check out, and they're done. That's it. They got to get themselves home. But between the time they check in on the day before and the morning when they check out the day after, we got them. And we try to give them a world-class experience that they'll never forget.
Wow. Luke, that's amazing. So I wonder who the lucky EOD techs will be this year.
See, I'm working with Ashley. She's I told her, she said that she's gonna come up with some way, some methodology for picking the people for this inaugural event. But I'm really hoping like they're sending one of their mental health people to evaluate our course. They really like what they hear about it, but they want to see it in person. And so this funded one, they're going to come down and observe it. And we really hope, and we're confident that they're going to like our program, and then we have another opportunity for even more EOD techs, hopefully in the fall of this year. And then going forward, if this thing works out, this might be an annual thing where multiple times a year we'll be able to have exclusive to EOD guys access to this event.
How neat.
And so, some of the other cool things is like, just to expand on that, like, the HPDE, the reason we did the BMW is because when I started it, there weren't enough people that had cars, that had their own car that they could go on the track. And so it was that reason that I reached the BMW Performance Center, because they provided the vehicle so I could open my doors to everybody. Well, just this last year, we raised enough money to get a dedicated track car. So now we could provide only one right now, but we could provide a vehicle to one veteran or first responder who wants to participate in an HPD event but don't have a car. So now we're expanding that part and opening access to that to the guys and gals that don't have that. And we're working with other charities too. We're not, I'm not one of those ones that's like, defensive and holding stuff. I like to share, so there's a lot of motorsport type charities out there that support veterans in different ways. And we've been working with them and networking and trying to come up with collaborative efforts so that, some of their guys can benefit our program, and our guys that go through our program maybe enjoy some of the benefits of theirs too. So, we're always looking to expand and grow and provide a more amazing experience for the veteran or first responder.
Yeah, that's awesome. So anybody who's listening who wants to learn more, can you tell us what's your website?
So go to trackheroes.org. That's TRACKHEROES. Some people forget that E. It looks like it's spelled wrong, but it's the right spelling. Trackheroes.org. So if you check that out, we have an events calendar on there where we typically keep updated with the new events. Right now, the 2 BMW events. We have one the 1st of March. It's an open enrollment event. We have your guys' event, or the EOD Warrior Foundation event, at the 31st of May. That one's not listed because that's an exclusive event. And then we have another open enrollment event on the 21st of June. But we're also going to start populating that with different HPDE events. We're working with the BMW Club to get access to Road Atlanta in November. If you've never checked out that track, that is a HPDE dream. That's a bucket list track. And so we're looking to get free slots to that. We're hoping to get up to VIR, the Virginia International Raceway in Virginia. That's another one of those dream tracks. So if you're interested in this stuff, or even if you're just a veteran who has already gotten into HPDE, check out our website, check out the events tab, because, we're always looking for more veterans. Like I said, I sometimes have to turn down free slots to HPDE events because I can't find veterans willing to take them. So if you like HPDE already, hit us up. We're going to be having a lot of events coming up.
Goodness, that is so exciting. Well, Luke, it was so nice talking to you today, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is incredible. So we always like to end our podcast with our tradition of asking you some of your favorite things. Are you ready?
Okay. Fire away.
Okay. What is your favorite? Oh, no. Who is your favorite race car driver?
See, that's weird because I came into this like the back end. I never was like a huge like racing fan, and then got into cars. I got into cars because I like the mental health aspect of it. But so I started recently. When I came into, I started watching. So I like Max Verstappen. I mean, before he won the first title for Formula One, he was still about to be the youngest guy to get it, and so I was definitely rooting for him. And I mean, he was unstoppable last year, absolutely incredible. But I also like Gasly. He's I don't know, I guess fan favorite. Watching the Drive to Survive or something on Netflix. I don't know. He's just like a cool dude. I want to see him do well. IndyCar, I started following a guy named Hurt. Is it Hertz, I want to say, or Brand Farton? Herta. I always call him Hertz, but Herta. He's a young guy, and I like the number 26. But he's been doing well, and I just. Those are my favorite ones. Those are the ones that whenever I'm looking at the track, I try to catch Formula One more than anything else. But I'm definitely starting to get into more like the IMSA racings and IMSA tracks and stuff like that. And I'm learning. I'm definitely learning.
That's so fun. What is your favorite car?
Man, I gotta say right now, I mean, I'm not one of those exotic guys. I mean, I would imagine driving one of those like Ferraris or those Lamborghinis would just be out of this world. But for cars that I've experienced driving, I've been digging my STI. It's been a lot of fun. Like it is a lot of fun passing a $250,000 car when you're a crappy little Subaru. It's a certain amount of satisfaction. You're like, huh, I'm doing this for cheaper. So it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a heavy car. It has an extra set of doors on it, but it's fun, man, because I could like throw my entire event gear in the back of my Subaru, like pop-up tents, folding chairs, all this stuff, throw it out of my car like a clown car, then go tracking. It's really fun. So I'm digging the STI. I'm digging the STI right now.
Awesome. Okay, what is your favorite thing about racing?
Oh, it's that state of mind. I mean, it's actually not what it's like different than what I thought it would be. Like, a lot of people say, the racing can get you super amped up, but it's actually almost the opposite. Like we found out that, doing the studies and stuff, that each turn gives you the same sort of effect and feeling that you get right before you squeeze off a marksmanship shot. So it's like,
oh, wow.
So each turn brings you down like that, and it keeps you calm and relaxed as you progress through the racing. And so it's like this zen that I have never experienced before. You get into a zone like you don't even realize. And so that mental lap helps you re-engage that zen. So yeah, it's like, so if you veterans out there like that, just go ahead and do that exercise. That feeling right there where that comes in, that's the feeling that you get on the track. And it's great.
Okay, last question. What is your favorite food or meal?
Man, I'm a sucker for sushi. But man, I love Korean food, like some beef bulgogi, some kimchi. I could crush some kimchi. I like sushi, I like kimchi, but I mean, I'm also a sucker for just straight up New York pizza. So, I'm a garbage dump when it comes to food. I'll eat anything.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again, Luke. And anybody listening, I hope that you'll reach out and get involved and help support this awesome new nonprofit.
Maria, thank you so much for this opportunity. This is awesome. I mean, like I said, coming up as EOD, this is very cool. This is full circle, and I'm very excited to be able to give some exclusive access to my fellow EOD brothers and sisters. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to our Behind the Warrior podcast, brought to you by the EOD Warrior Foundation. The EOD Warrior Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization serving the EOD community by providing financial assistance, scholarships, and providing hope and wellness resources for the active duty, reserve, National Guard, retired, and veteran EOD communities and their families. We also honor our fallen and wounded EOD technicians by maintaining the EOD Memorial and Remembrance Garden. We do all this through the generosity of individual and corporate donors and sponsors. If you would like to assist the foundation or support our Behind the Warrior podcast, click the link on our webpage at eodwarriorfoundation.org or contact us at info@eodwarriorfoundation.org. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell a friend. The various opinions, beliefs, and viewpoints expressed by guests, contributors, and participants of the Behind the Warrior podcast are their own and are intended for informational purposes only. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions, beliefs, viewpoints, or policies of the EOD Warrior Foundation or its employees and volunteers.